People think healing ends the day you stop talking to your ex. But for many people, that's not where the relationship lingers. It lingers in much smaller moments. You're waiting for your coffee, standing in line at the grocery store, lying in bed before you fall asleep. You unlock your phone to answer a message. 3 minutes later, you're staring at the profile you swore you would never look at again. There wasn't a decision, no debate. Your thumb simply knew where to go. And afterward, you feel exactly the way you always do. A little emptier, a little more confused, yet somehow more likely to do it again tomorrow. Why? If looking always hurts, why does your mind keep returning to the same place? The obvious answer is that you still miss them. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes you're chasing something much harder to name. Because checking an ex's profile is rarely about collecting information. It's about searching for emotional certainty in a place that can never give it to you. And for many gay men, that search can become far more complicated than it first appears. Not because they're weaker, not because they can't let go, but because what they lost wasn't always just another relationship. Sometimes it felt like the first place they were completely seen. Every relationship changes us, but some relationships become part of our identity, especially when they arrive after years of hiding pieces of yourself. Maybe they were the first man you held hands with in public, the first person who made your sexuality feel ordinary instead of something you had to explain. The first relationship where you finally stopped wondering if you were too much or not enough. When relationships carry that kind of emotional weight, the breakup doesn't simply remove a person. It removes a version of yourself that only existed beside them. That's why moving on can feel strangely impossible. You're grieving two losses at once, the person and the person you became with them. Most people never separate those two experiences, so they mistake identity loss for romantic longing. And that misunderstanding quietly keeps them stuck. Because every time they open that profile, they're hoping to find more than pictures. They're hoping to find themselves. Notice what usually happens before you check. You're rarely overflowing with happiness. It often happens after something much smaller. You saw another couple holding hands. A friend announced an engagement. Someone stopped replying to your messages. A lonely Friday night. An awkward first date. A quiet apartment. Nothing dramatic. Just enough emotional discomfort for your mind to start searching for relief. And strangely, your ex becomes the destination. Not because you believe you'll feel better, because your brain has learned that they're connected to intense emotion. Whether that emotion is hope, regret, jealousy, or sadness, it doesn't matter. Emotion is still stimulation, and the human brain has an incredible tendency to repeat behaviors that produce emotionally intense experiences, even painful ones. Especially painful ones, because pain still feels like connection. Silence doesn't. Social media quietly changes the way heartbreak works. Years ago, breakups created distance. Today, they create permanent visibility. You don't have to wonder what your ex is doing. The internet offers endless opportunities to find out. At least, feels that way. But here's the trap. You're not seeing their life. You're seeing the moments they decided were worth showing. The smiling photos, the vacations, the celebrations, the carefully chosen angles. Not the doubts, not the loneliness, not the nights they question themselves. Just the highlights. Your brain knows this. But heartbreak doesn't think logically. Heartbreak compares your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. And that's a comparison nobody wins. One photograph. That's all it takes. Maybe they're smiling beside someone new. Maybe they're at a restaurant you used to visit together. Maybe they're wearing the hoodie you bought them. Suddenly, your mind begins writing stories. They're happier. They've forgotten me. I was easier to replace than I thought. None of those conclusions are visible in the picture. Your brain created them, because uncertainty makes stories feel safer than unanswered questions. And once your imagination fills the gaps, the picture becomes emotionally larger than reality itself. Many gay men know another feeling that rarely gets discussed. The fear that meaningful connection is harder to replace. Not because it's impossible, but because smaller dating communities can make breakups feel more visible. You still see each other, mutual friends, the same neighborhoods, the same apps, the same parties, sometimes even the same conversations. The relationship ends. The reminders don't. Closure becomes difficult when the person keeps existing inside your everyday world. Visible enough to reopen old feelings. Far enough away that you can't resolve them. It's emotional proximity without emotional access. And that's exhausting. There's another reason the profile becomes difficult to stop checking. Control. Or at least, the illusion of it. Breakups leave people powerless. You can't control how someone remembers you. Whether they miss you. Whether they regret leaving. Whether they've fallen in love again. Those answers belong to them now. That's uncomfortable. So the mind searches for substitutes. Checking becomes a way of feeling involved. As if gathering enough clues might eventually reveal what they're thinking. But people don't post their emotional reality. They post moments. Your imagination supplies the rest. Eventually something unexpected begins happening. Your emotional life slowly reorganizes itself around someone who is no longer participating in it. Their updates determine your mood. Their photos influence your confidence. Their weekends affect your sleep. Without realizing it, you've handed someone emotional influence they aren't even trying to have. Not because they're controlling you, because your attention never fully left. Attention is powerful. Where it stays, emotion usually follows. The strange thing is, most people don't actually want their ex back. Not exactly. They want the uncertainty to stop. They want to know they mattered, that the relationship was real, that they weren't simply another chapter someone else finished reading. Those are deeply human desires, but social media cannot answer them. No profile ever says, "You were important." No story ever confirms, "What we had changed me." Instead, keeps asking new questions. And unanswered questions are remarkably addictive. One day, without realizing it, something changes. You open your phone. The urge appears. Just like always. Your thumb hesitates. For the first time, you notice the habit before you follow it. That tiny pause matters. Because healing rarely begins with certainty. It begins with awareness. With recognizing that the urge to check isn't always a sign you're still in love. Sometimes it's simply your mind reaching for familiarity during loneliness. Sometimes it's grief looking for somewhere to land. Sometimes it's identity trying to remember who it is without another person beside it. Once you understand that, the profile starts losing its power. Not overnight. Quietly. Almost invisibly. The questions don't disappear. But they stop running your life. And eventually, you realize something that would have seemed impossible months earlier. You know less about your ex, but you know far more about yourself. That's the trade heartbreak quietly asks for. To stop investigating someone else's life, so you can finally begin rebuilding your own. Because moving on isn't the moment you stop loving someone. It's the moment your future becomes more compelling than your curiosity about their present. And that's when the profile finally becomes what it always was. Just another page on the internet. Instead of the place where your heart kept waiting for answers that were never going to appear.